Okay, let's go on. Do some more stuff. Again, I'm going to just close out of this query. And we're going to talk about calculated fields next. Okay. Sometimes we need to know something that's not stored in the database that we can derive from the database. We want to calculate something, like somebody's age, or how much how much wealth they have, or how many, do they own a pet? Do they own this stuff? We want to calculate something, and those are called calculated fields. And so I'm going to make one. I do that. Why did I do that? All right, query design. What I want is I want to calculate the ratio between the value of a house and that household's income. Because there's two good reasons why I might want to do that. If I find somebody who's making a lot of money who lives in a little house, there's a sales opportunity there. I could, if I'm a developer and I've got these new, McMansions or something, I want to sell to people and say, look, you got this, you're living in this, dumpy little house. Why don't you move up to something bigger? At the other end of that ratio, where people have a lot of house and they have little income, which is probably more typical these days, that they're in trouble. They might, they're behind on their mortgage, or they could be potentially behind on their mortgage, or whatever, and I can, offer to refinance or something like that. So there's lots of different reasons why we'd want to know this ratio, but it's not in the database. So we have to calculate it ourselves. So all the information I need to know happens to be in the household table. So I'll pick that, and then I'll pick HHID so I know which household I'm talking about. And I want the ratio of home value to income. So just for testing purposes, I'm going to add those two fields to the query. Okay. So I can check to make sure that my calculation is correct. Okay. And then I pick an empty column. And then up in the middle of the ribbon, there's this thing called the builder. That's supposed to be a magic wand next to it, but I don't know. Anyway, that's what we want. And then you'll get this dialog box. Now you can type in the formula yourself, but I like doing it this way because, as you'll see in a second, they're pretty long and involve a lot of typing, and I think it's quicker to just do it through the selection process. Anyway, all right. So I need home value divided by income, household income. That information is stored in my market database, and it's stored in this thing called tables, and in fact, it's stored in the household table. So I just drilled down to where those pieces of information are. Household table. Okay. Then that middle column there came alive. This one right here. And now I can look for my numerator, which is home value, like that. Okay. So when you create a formula in Access, you've got to type all that stuff in. Divided by, so it's just the normal slash symbol. Divided by what? Home or household income. There it is, right there. Okay. And so on. So you just write the formula here. Parentheses, all that sort of stuff, we can do all that sort of stuff. And then when you're done, you just say OK. And it brings us back to here. Now notice that formula is here now, or expression is what they call it in Access. And it starts off with EXPR1 colon. The EXPR1 is the new name for the field. Remember, because it's going to create an answer table for us, and every column, every field has to have some name. So it says, okay, you didn't give me a name, we'll just call it EXPR1, expression 1. If you want to change it to something else, you just take that out and you type in whatever you want. So I'm just going to replace that with the word ratio, and you can put whatever title you want in here. Whoops, if I could type, let's try that again. But make sure you leave the colon in there, because that's what separates the field name from the formula. And then we can just run this thing like this. And then my ratio over here, I probably didn't have to go quite that far. There it is. Okay. And it calculates it out to something like 14 decimal places. Okay. And then I can do whatever, like, so again, if I was looking for people who have a high ratio, I could just say, give me the top, whatever, or I could pick some, arbitrary number, and I could do that. Because what this is now, this is just another field. Okay, so it does what I said before. It picks the table, and then it creates its answer table with just those fields in it, and then it'll come back through and knock out which records it doesn't need. All right, so that thing we just created there is a field in this table, and now we can tell which ones to select on. So down here we could say, look, if we're looking for people who we think might be in trouble with their mortgage payments or whatever, we could say something like greater than 10. And there they are. Okay. Or we could use that top query and say, give us the top 10% or the top 20%, because we might not know what the magic number, cutoff number is that we're looking for. So we could use that to get to that number, and then we could use that in future. So anyway, read the question, pick the table, pick the fields, pick the records. And so we've got that, and we can do whatever we want to do with it. Now, of course, if we were only worried about a particular state, we could, throw a state in here, or, okay. Let's pick Rhode Island. I haven't picked on them in a long time. Stuff like that. Okay, so everything else, it's the same. Okay. So now we should get a lot less people. And we get 66. Okay. Oh, by the way, if you're in a hurry to get that answer, because, let me go back and see if I can do this again. Watch this. When I run this, see this number doesn't update down here? It's actually showing you those first rows, and it's still working behind the scenes to fill in the stuff down there. Because you're impatient, and so it says, okay, we'll show you some information. We do that. If you're in a hurry to see how many records are in a table, you can force it by just clicking on this last guy right here. It'll take you to the bottom of the table automatically, and it'll fill that one in, and you can see your answer and go on. Some of these queries are going to take longer to run, and you can get an answer out quicker that way. Anyway, just a little trick, time saver for you. Okay. Other kinds of queries. Let's just go back into the thing this time. Okay. I'm just going to go to it. I don't want to mess up my formula there, so I'm just going to pick a new empty column up because I want to talk a little bit more about the builder. Well, a couple of things I want to do. First of all, if your formula is not working right, you can click in that field and you can just click on Builder again, and it'll bring that up again. It's a little bit easier to see here, a little easier to deal with and edit and stuff. So you can do that. And if you want to add more terms to it, or if you want to modify this anyway, that's the way to go. Functions. If I need a function, like I need the today function or the now function. A lot of those functions that we used in Excel are also available in Access. Not all of them, but if you see one here, it's exactly the same as what you saw in Excel. It works exactly the same way. So the PMT function, the payment function, the famous payment function. If you need that for whatever purpose is here, then you could find it in built-in functions. And they're even categorized the same sort of way. They've got financial functions and all that sort of stuff, all right? So this should be old hat to you at this point, and you can use those. The date time functions are in there, all the financial functions are in there, the integer function, if you need truncation, the round function's in there. Most of the functions that you need, or you saw in Excel, are in here. Okay, so you pick that sort of stuff, and you go on and do whatever you want to do. And then string concatenation. Okay. Putting strings together. we spent some time taking them apart, and I said then, if you have them in separate columns or in separate fields over here in Access, it's a snap to put those things back together. Okay? In fact, it's even easier here than in Excel. Why does it keep doing this? Thank you. Oh, let's try that. I need a new query. Okay. Next week, we're going to need a new field that combines both the household ID and the adult ID number into one field. And so what I want to do is I want to create a new field that has household ID number dash and then the adult ID number. Okay. Well, that's easy enough to do. Again, I'm just cautious about this stuff. So when I test it, I'll do this. I'll put those fields in there, and then I'll write my expression here. And all that stuff is in a table in the market database called adults. And I need that. The ampersand, shift number 7, is the string concatenation operation. This is simply says take this first part, add to it another string. And then I'm going to say I want a dash between those two to help me visually understand what is in there. So I would just say double quote, dash, double quote, and then another ampersand because I want to add more to that string. And then I pick adult ID number, like that. Well, double click on it. Now I've picked it. Now I've got my expression. And now I'm going to run it to see how I did. And everything looks just the way I want it to. Okay. So I can come back in here now and I can get rid of this first field. And I'll like that. Okay. And then next week I'll show you how to use that. Well, how to use one table and another table, or this table and another table. And so we can just leave this here and we'll pick it up next week. Okay. So, but that's how you do string concatenation. All right, questions here? I got to move along. Okay, your turn. Where are we now? We're on 3. Okay, so go ahead and work on 3, and then we'll move on to wrap up with a couple of other little things.